Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Angry Belly Anime Watch podcast, where
we watch anime. Oh,
we have a treat today for you. We got 3 episodes, the last 3 episodes of this anime, Hard Luck Woman to the Real Folk Blues Part 2, 24 to 26. But before we jump into that, Katie, how you doing? What's crack-a-lackin'?
Ooh, I'm tired, you know.
Yep.
That, pre-holiday work grind kind of getting me, kind of squawking me there. But otherwise, I'm good. Doing some embroidery work lately, so that's been delightful.
Embroidery?
Yeah, I've been embroidering.
What are you, 80? Damn.
Yeah, I am. You know me. You know I am simultaneously a 4-year-old child and also an 84-year-old woman. You know that.
I like how there's specific numbers. Like the numbers aren't just like 5-year-old to 50. It's like no. I'm 4 and 84.
Well, I'm not like 87. That's offensive, and honestly,
that is a little bit.
Going older would just not be in my benefit. But I'm also like, I don't know. I feel like 5-year-olds are starting to have more opinions on things.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And if we're really going with the true split, you gotta be even. Gotta be fair.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah. But yeah, what's up with you?
We're good, working. Per usual, trying to like crank stuff out for the channel and stuff, but that's about it.
Working harder, hardly working.
That's cringe. Don't cringe right now.
Yeah, I know. I know.
I'm just kidding. Okay. So the first episode we're starting with is Hard Luck Woman. Ed places a fake bounty on her own father and hopes Jet and Spike will lead her to him. They do, and despite a joyous reunion, her father immediately abandons her to pursue his work. Ed and Ian decide to leave the group. Now, there's a lot of revealed here in this little synopsis, but how did you feel all in all about this episode?
I really had a lot of... This episode was so sweet, and I don't know, the ending of this episode hit me in the feels pretty deep.
So yes, I agree.
It hit pretty hard. There's some weird shit in this episode.
Oh yeah.
Lots of little weird details, and it raised a lot of questions for me that I'll hold for a minute. But I loved this episode, honestly. This was the perfect wrap on 2 storylines, specifically Ed and Ian's storyline.
Yes.
And I was like, wow. Like that, it was perfect to me. And I feel a lot of strong feelings without revealing too early about how other people's storylines were resolved. But this was perfect to me.
Great. So obviously, like I said, this episode's name is Hard Luck Woman. It opens on the Bebop speeding through space. Faye is watching a tape, presumably the tape that was given to her, right, or shipped to her in previous episodes. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of coming back to that storyline. Ed kind of scares her and is sleepily there, and she knows where that place is in the video because some stuff kind of looks a little funky and fuzzy. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, hey, I know where that is. Maybe, probably, I think. And Ed starts to kind of, fall back asleep, and Faye blows on Ed's face, ? I'm not exactly sure what happened.
Oh.
What that even was.
It's some weird up closeness. Yeah.
It was almost like she blew a raspberry in his mouth. I do not get, and we just kind of brushed past
weird.
It. And I was like, okay. And so Spike is half naked, just looking outside, brushing his teeth outside for some reason.
Classic Spike.
Just kind of looking across the way there. Jet barges in, is asking why are they on Earth? They were supposed to be on Mars, and he's like, I don't know. He's like, I'm just chilling. Jet explains oh, we were looking for this really big bounty, this big fugitive, and he's on Mars and he's probably getting away or whatever. And he's like, I don't know. The women are gone. I don't know what to tell you. And the women being, obviously, Ed and Faye. We switched to seeing Faye flying away on her little ship, with Ed strapped to the bottom of the ship for some reason.
Literally freaking taped.
Literally. I was like, what the hell's going on here? And Ed was just chilling, having the time of her life.
Yeah.
So we have a sick ass song happening.
Yeah. The music slaps. That was literally my first note in this section. I was like, wow, this sequence, perfect.
This episode in general just had so many good songs, but I think I have written here 3 songs, 3 separate scenes where their songs were great. There's a big truck going on. We see some people kind of rummaging through the meteor holes in the earth. Ed and Faye go to the set to a crater as well, and they're kind of looking, rummaging around. Kids start to pop up everywhere, and apparently they know Ed, and they're like little funky kids, like little gremlins, and they're trying to get Faye's like pinky nail because that's the last one they need.
Yeah.
One of the little girls needs to collect.
She said, "I'm collecting nails." What the fuck? I don't. These writers have like some of the weirdest, most specific fetishes of all time.
Absolutely.
That they have integrated into the show in the weirdest ways.
Fingernails. There's been a few fingernail things in this show, hasn't there?
Yeah. It's the nails and it's all about the female children toes.
It's weird. It's weird stuff.
Yeah. It's upsetting.
A gnome shows up and tries to douse the kids in water, but instead gets Faye completely wet. And Faye's like, what the heck? And so then they go back into their little shelter, and the nun explains that Ed wandered in 5 years ago, but she wandered away 3 years ago. So there's just a little timeline here for Ed, how Ed just showed up at this place, an orphanage. I'm not really sure. And I believe she references Ed and says, oh, she's like a cat. Just kind of goes wherever, you know?
Yeah. Well, this made me think, it made me realize that I don't really know exactly what timeline the Bebop is on.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't think we've watched 3 years of this, but it's very possible that like months, like half years at a time could take place between episodes. I mean, it's never specified. It's not once specified. So it could be that Ed has been with the Bebop 3 years, or it could be that Ed's been with the Bebop 3 months. And I have no clue.
Right. So Nanun tells Ed to go to the desk to get a picture of her dad who came looking for her 2 months ago. And so the dad who we did see in that big old truck with that sick song, looking through all the holes in the earth, it reveals that that's her dad. Moving on, as Faye is looking at the ocean, they kind of switch scenes. They finish eating because that's what they were doing before. It's looking at the ocean. An old lady appears in a wheelchair and says, her and Faye went to high school. And so I don't know if it was me, but the old lady seems kind of like not phased that Faye doesn't look old, you know?
Yeah, which makes me think that maybe her story was talked about in media, or at least just talked about by the people in their town.
Right.
That a lot of other people have a lot more information about her than she does about herself.
Right. And that was one of those things that I was like, I wish we could explore a little bit more, but I'm also happy with what we got here in the future.
Yeah.
So old lady knows about her accident. Faye kind of gets the heebie-jeebies and is just like, I can't do this right now. Runs away in the process.
Yeah, she yeets herself.
Yeah, she picks Ed up and just leaves. And there's a kick-ass song again. They do go back to the Bebop. Jet gets mad at them, but notices that Faye is sad. He's like, okay, I'm going to kind of lay off here because she seems a little like she's having some internal issues. And, you know, I will say, I know you like Jet a lot. And this is an instance where I agree. Like, I see Jet kind of having this humility within himself to be like, oh, some stuff's going on. I'm going to lay off and let her kind of exist the way she needs to, you know?
Yeah.
Which I thought was great.
Yeah.
And so they say the dad's name, Abdelhidi Sinis Hansep Lutfin. Like, it's just some like weird long name. I don't really know what country or name of origin it is.
Sure.
But we'll just say Ed's dad because I don't want to butcher that name again.
Yeah.
They're looking through bounties and they see that Ed's dad is worth 50 million wulong, or at least that's what they say verbally.
Yeah.
And so they're like, oh, hell yeah, we're getting this person. But they don't know exactly who this person is, obviously, at this point. Ed's dad, we switch to Ed's dad and his assistant. They see something crash into Earth. And so then they speed along to go get it. There's a moment that I think was kind of funny where Ed's dad is just kind of eating eggs raw. Ed is like, yeah, this is good food. You want some? And he keeps saying his assistant's name wrong and calls him Macintosh at one point, which is it's not at all his name. So there's a Faye shower scene.
Yeah.
So that's one for the boys. We win there.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't finish the series without having, you know, one final hurrah. Looking at those fake old bobbies.
For sure. So we see that. It's a good one. As she's having her depression shower, looking up at the water and the shower head, she remembers everything. And I will say that this specific part where she's reminded of her school and stuff, it's a very beautiful song. It's a sweet moment of her like kind of seeing everything and understanding how she got to this point, why she got to this point, and that sort of thing. She's on a ship, right? And it kind of blows up. And I really like that in this situation when she's remembering it, the animation and the music, how they kind of line up. There's a moment where the glass cracks and it almost looks like the moon breaks apart.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell if the moon actually broke apart or if it was just the glass. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it looked really good and I enjoyed it.
They do a lot of cool stuff with Faye's flashback this episode. Like later in the episode, she has like another flashback and they like alter the sound quality in like this epic, awesome way.
For sure. And so Faye does leave in a hurry and telling Ed that she remembers where she belongs and Ed should go with who is waiting for her, obviously referring to her dad. The thing that I really liked about this is that as she's leaving the shower, she kind of bumps into Spike, and it's almost like she doesn't know how to like talk to him about it. You know,
she looks like she's on a different planet in the scene. Like she looks like a shell of herself, really, truly.
No, yeah, I agreed. Like she almost doesn't even know how to look within herself to understand how to address it herself with, so let alone address it with someone else who she doesn't super have a relationship to like that sort of way, But anyway, so she does leave and Spike and Jet do end up looking for Ed's dad and they do find him and they explain that they're looking for every meteor and they're trying to make a map, right?
Yeah.
And they're meteor chasers, let's just say that. So after this is a sick ass fight with great music where Spike doesn't ever really touch Ed's dad. Like,
I know. He doesn't even get a freaking hand in, dude.
No. And the fun thing about this is like the animation just kind of went off. There's no reason to.
It went so hard, this scene.
It was really good. And the music was, everything about it was awesome. And despite our main character basically getting his ass whooped without actually getting his ass whooped happened, it was still...
Honestly, Spike deserves it, though.
There are moments where I'm like, you're a little shit. I feel like that's the only, like, that encapsulates Spike. He's just a little shit,
Yeah. Classic Joe Carpenter.
Yeah, yep. A wild Ed appears in the middle of them fighting, and Ed rolls up with the ship. And Ed's name is revealed. Their name is Francois. So they do a funny jump where Ed jumps to her dad, and her dad catches, and it's just like this really weird pose, and I thought that it was very cute and fun.
And like Jet and Spike are just standing there like, what the fuck is happening right now?
Exactly. And so they're like, wait, did Ed put this bounty? And so they're looking at their little tablet and it says 50.0000, not comma, 0.0000.
50 big old woolongs.
50 woolongs. So it's enough for a Big Mac, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Another meteor appears. And as I said, they're meteor chasers. So Ed's dad and his assistant just kind of deuce out. Like, they're like, all right, we're leaving, bye. And they just leave. And Ed's just kind of like, what?
Because Ed's dad is like, so, are you going to come hang out with me? He's like, are you going to come with us? And then they literally leave. And Ed is just kind of standing there in their dust, like so disappointed. It is a devastating moment.
It is. And the thing about it is like, Ed's dad was just like, oh, you guys are hardworking, or you guys took care of Ed. Great. Here's a bunch of eggs. And like, that was kind of it, like as far as like seeing, like to the extent of
doing anything fatherly.
Right. To the extent of caring for Ed, right? Just like you're saying, anything fatherly. So I think that was just about it. And then they left and we just kind of never see them again.
And like, it's made very clear to Ed that he does not have the same interest that she does.
Right.
It's just it's so fucking sad. It's so sad.
To add to more sadness, Faye is running up to the house that used to be there in her memories. And we're seeing this cool parallel between her past and her present and just kind of trying to figure out if it's there, if it's not going to be there. She shows up, the house is no longer there. And it's not like, oh, it's just gone. Now it's just vegetation being grass or trees. It's like, it's a shell of what it once was, being like, it's just like kind of in ruins at that point, Yeah. Which is super sad because I think it's a metaphor almost for how you said earlier, Faye is kind of a shell of herself,
Yeah.
Which was very sad. She does draw like a little rectangle where I'm assuming she would just kind of sit in like a windowsill and kind of look out to the ocean. And she's kind of there. Go back to the Bebop, and there's another sick song where Ein and Ed leave, effectively. Jet is just kind of cooking. There's no Faye, there's no Ein, there's no Ed. And it's just him and Spike. And he cooks all these eggs and has bowls out for everybody. And they're not there. Mm-hmm. They are not there.
Don't skip over the best line. Ed walks away, and then Ein runs after, and like Ed's like, no, go away. And then he looks down at Ein, and Ein is not leaving, and Ed is like, do you want to go with Ed? And for the first time in Ed's life, somebody actively chose her.
Yes.
Because she spent years searching for a place to call home, and a bunch of people have like accepted her, but kind of because she forced her way into their family.
Right.
For the first time ever, even though it's just her dog, somebody chose Ed actively. And that, I cried. I definitely cried at that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because, yes, agreed. That is a beautiful moment where our funny little fur friend decided to leave. And it's sad because we don't see them again on screen, but it's still one of those things.
But they walk into the sunset, presumably having like wonderful adventures.
Presumably, yes. And my personal favorite part is the end where it says, see you, cowgirl, someday, somewhere. And I got chills, I felt my eyes just kind of like well up a little bit. I didn't
I know.
But it was so sweet.
I got teary-eyed. I wasn't like sobbing, but I was definitely, there were tears welling up. I was like, oh gosh, that's really good.
It was wonderful. It was really wonderful. Anyways, that was that episode. It was wonderful. It was great. I really enjoyed it. Now, the beginning of the end. The
teaser going into these final 2 episodes, the teaser after Hard Luck Woman was so dramatic. It was like, our time with the Bebop is short and it's coming to an end. And I was just like, shit, okay. So they like, I don't know, it was just a really dramatic teaser.
They were wrapping it up. These 2 episodes are dramatic to no end. Like, they're just so dramatic for no reason. I mean, for a good reason, but they are dramatic.
It takes itself so seriously. There's some great Easter eggs in this last episode, though.
So let's boost through them, baby.
Ready to go.
The Real Folk Blues, Part 1. Faye briefly teams up with Julia when she assists her escape from a Red Dragon hit squad and relays a message to Spike about Julia's whereabouts. Spike and Julia finally reunite. So that's how that goes. So how do you feel about this episode?
I liked this episode. I liked it better than the last episode. I'll say that, personally.
Okay. So you don't agree with the ratings on IMDb?
I didn't enjoy the last episode,
okay.
But I did enjoy this episode.
Okay.
My favorite part of this episode is realizing that the people from Big Shot are okay.
Yes.
That's my favorite part of the episode, and it happens 4 minutes into the episode. I was like, oh, they're at the airport, and the guy is picking up his mom, and we find out that his name is Alfred.
Alfred, yes.
And she's like, oh, what about your coworker? And she's like, oh, she's fine. I had a lot of big hopes.
She was getting married, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that she's getting married. And it's just like, it gave me a lot of really big hopes because I realized that even the smaller characters were getting closure and that we were seeing like a wrap up of their storylines. So I had really, really high hopes that would be the case for every character.
Absolutely. Well, let's get to the play-by-play. We open up on Mars on Rainy City. There's a blonde girl. Is that Julia? Maybe, potentially. She gets to her room, potentially maybe like a hotel or something. A phone call to her room tells her it's dangerous and the elders are on the move and she needs to go.
Woof.
Vicious shows up to kill someone. Not really sure what the hit was going to be. The room lights up. Lights turn on. This was a stage that was set to catch Vicious in the act. The elders are in the room and fortune teller, they explain, he's like, how did you know I was going to be here? And like, oh, fortune teller told us. They're like, all right. And they're like, hey, by the way, you dick, you cannot be our successor. We are going to kill you. We're going to execute you or whatever. And there's this interesting moment where he says, why, they're like, oh, take him away. And he's like, oh, why even do that? Just execute me now where I stand.
Yeah,
and they're like,
just
no,
kill me.
We need to humiliate you first.
Yeah, he was like, we're not going to give you the pleasure of dying. And I was like, whoa, whoopsie.
Well, that was a huge miscalculation on their part because as I was even watching it, I was like, that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
That is a horrible idea. You're giving this man a chance, basically.
Yeah.
So, anyways, obviously they do take him away, though. Spike and Jet are drunk in a bar, and they're talking about how women and children mess things up, right? Talking about, our fur friend, not our fur friend, sorry, Ed and Faye, obviously. And then some people show up to kill them, and Jet gets shot in the leg. During this whole exchange, however, we do meet a new character who is apparently the brother to a previous character we saw before in one of in flashbacks and stuff like that. As they're kind of pinned down, Spike takes out one person, another person comes out to help them. Shin is his name, and he's like, "Hey, Vicious is gonna die. Elders are on the move, basically the same thing, and Julia's gonna be getting chased, right? And then like, you need to get out of here."
Yeah.
And so they're like, okay. So he says, "I'm gonna hold them off, so you can escape." So we find,
which was literally so nice.
No, it was so nice. And did I say that was the brother of Lynn? I don't know if I said that part. They're related, so that's how they like know each other.
And isn't his name like Shin or something?
Yeah, Shin.
Yeah.
Jet gets treated by a
bad move on behalf of the parents, though. Like
Lynn and Shin.
I feel like that Lynn and Shin. I feel like that's kind of like a hard thing to keep up with.
Absolutely.
But also, he's a better guy than me. Like, even if I knew somebody, even if that person did a good thing for my brother, I don't know if I would put their lives instead of mine the way that he did. Honestly, it was really wholesome.
No, absolutely. They show up at a doctor's office who it comes out they're a veteran, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm just treating some stray cats that limped in who I can't seem to get rid of." So they're treating Jet's leg for the shot. So then there's a flashback after Jet's getting kind of treated of Spike leaving the syndicate and faking his death and asking Juliet to come with him. And so they were going to meet at this place, and they were going to go together, and the whole thing.
The thing that we've seen flashbacks of like literally 1,000 times.
Right, and now we're starting to actually understand what's going on here.
Yeah.
Vicious was planning to kill Spike with Julia's hands. So the thing was, Vicious was like, "Hey, you're both going to die unless you kill him for me." Right. And that was the thing. She's like, "Well, I don't want him to die. I don't want myself to die." So she just straight up doesn't show up.
Yeah. So she literally sacrificed her life so that Spike could live. But Spike doesn't know. And it's just like,
It's this very interesting conundrum because now she's effectively on the run forever, right? Because she's trying to hide from Vicious. And I'm assuming, I don't know if they ever say this, but I'm assuming that where he ends up to kill someone, I'm assuming he's showing up to kill her. Not exactly sure, but that's what's going on. Faye's at a station, and she's kind of just pondering. The guy from Big Shot shows up, just like you were talking about, going to live with his mom.
Yeah.
Talks about how she's like, "Oh, what about your co-host?" And he's like, "Oh, she's getting married or something like that." So then they leave. We cut back to Spike calling Faye to come back, and she says no. There's this thing where it's like interesting because he's like, "Stop fucking around," basically, and just come home. Jet needs help.
Yeah.
And she doesn't like that. She's like, "Whatever, dude. Like, I have things to do."
Yeah.
And she hangs up. He's like, "Oh, Ayn and Ed are there anyways. They'll be fine." Which obviously, as viewers know that neither of them are there.
Wah.
So there's a car chase happening with a nice red car convertible. What we can assume is the syndicate chasing this red car. We know the viewer that it's Julia. Faye does not know this. Faye comes in and just starts helping her.
This shit got me juiced up, Louie.
Yeah, this was super interesting. She shoots out some tires. They help protect each other, whatever. They end up stopping, and they're talking. They're like, "Oh, I'm
like Faye literally like helps like they help each other, and then Faye literally jumps in the vehicle with his fucking rando.
Yeah,
so Faye of her to do.
So Faye of her to do.
Oh my god! And then they're literally, this shit pisses me off, and they're talking, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a bounty hunter," and like all this shit, and like we know Julia and Faye, we're like, we know the connection, but we're like, okay, but does like Faye know that this is the Julia? And does Julia know that this is Faye? Because they're both like kind of asking questions at each other, trying to prod it out. Oh my God, it's so good. And he's like, "You're a bounty hunter." She's like, "Really?" Like trying to give Faye the opportunity to relay the information. And then at the end of the conversation, Julia's just like, "Hey, if you see Spike, tell him I'll be waiting for him. He'll know where." It's just like,
and she's like,
it's so good. And it pissed me off though, because like Faye literally had the entire conversation, this whole opportunity to say that it was Spike, because she knows there's a moment where they're sitting there, they're like standing and like smoking or whatever. And you're like, oh my God, Faye literally knows this is Julia. And she's so fucking selfish. She doesn't say anything. And that pissed me off. It pissed me off so much. I'm just like, really?
She doesn't want to go back, right? And that's the That's the whole reason.
I know,
so she doesn't want to feel the need, like she doesn't want to need to go back, you know?
I guess it just
we can talk more about it because there's obviously some more stuff happens next episode where furthers our conversation about this. But as Katie just said, when she gets off the car, she's like, "Oh, tell Spike that I'll be waiting at the place he knows where," and she's like,
she's like, "Oh, awkward."
So we go back to Jet and Spike on the Bebop, and they're talking, and there's this fun little story that Jet tells Spike, basically trying to convince him to turn back and not go because he's gonna die. Right?
Oh, this shit is so ironic.
It was very ironic. So obviously, in the middle of their conversation, Faye returns to the Bebop. Spike's like, "Oh, she's here." Before anything kind of happens, Jet is told to leave. He gets a call from his cop friend. He's like, "Hey, they're moving. We can't help. You gotta go. They're after your partner." And Jet's like, "Yeah, it's kind of late for that. Like, we're going. Like, there's no stopping him." And there's this moment where Faye gets off her ship and she sees Spike and she's just sad to see him. Like, she just doesn't want to do it because I think within herself, she knows like, hey, if I tell him, he's going to die. People are going to die, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, he sees her. She's like, "Oh, I have information for you. How much you willing to pay?" He's like, "I don't have money."
Yeah.
It's revealed that bad people followed Faye and they start attacking the Bebop. Spike leaves to defend. He defends. We cut to Vicious and we see Vicious about to get executed. And the coup begins, essentially. And that bird that was always on Vicious's shoulder it releases bombs everywhere. Or is a bomb?
Question mark. That was unclear.
That was so unclear. But regardless, that is what happens. Bombs just kind of start dropping. People who are part of the syndicate were actually on Vicious's side and they end up slaughtering all the elders, basically.
Yeah.
And through all this, there's some sick jazz music. Spike is defending the Bebop. After everything's all said and done, Jet tells him to leave for Julia, like, just go do it. He's like, you need to go do this, go do this.
Yeah.
We cut back to Vicious, and Vicious is now the leader of the syndicate, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Spike meets Julia, and she pulls out a gun on him. And there's a to be continued here.
The classic Cowboy Bebop cliffhanger.
Crazy stuff. There was no See You Soon Space Cowboy. There was nothing like that. It was a to be continued because we're going right into the Real Folk Blues Part 2. Tell me how you feel about this episode. Like just a quick little, I know you have feelings. Just a quick little bang bang.
Quick little, honestly, hated it.
Okay, cool. That's all I need to know. Vicious claims leadership of the Red Dragon Syndicate. Julia and Spike.
Wait, what about you?
We'll get to it. Because I have feelings too. I feel like you and I feel. I won't reveal. I won't reveal yet. I'll make the listener also listen to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
Vicious claims leadership of the Red Dragon Syndicate. Julia and Spike plan to run away as before, but Spike still feels the desire for revenge, leading to a final confrontation with Vicious and the Syndicate.
Wow.
The first thing I want to note here is there was no theme music, was there? For this one?
I don't know. I skipped.
It kind of just
if there was, I skipped it or it didn't exist. I don't know because I went straight from the last shot of part 1 right into part 2.
Because there was a I jumped right into it and there was no opening. I might have accidentally skipped it, but I was like, wait, there's no opening right now. So obviously, opens with Julia pointing a gun at Spike, just where we last left off. Julia was supposed to kill Spike, but chose to be on the run instead, which is something we already know, but she kind of tells him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jin returns to tell Vicious he lost Spike and Julia. Vicious turns around to him and says, "Hey, don't be like your brother." So big old bum bum bum. Like effectively being like, get this shit figured out or you're dead.
It's a threat as fuck.
Right. So we kind of go back and see, in this whole exchange of Julia and Spike, Julia comes in and hugs Spike. She wants to leave with him. She wants to run away, but you can see just kind of in Spike's eyes, like there's something going on in his brain that's not going to happen. Like there's
fucking annoying.
There's no way that he's going to leave.
This whole fucking series, all he's been talking about is how he wants Julia. I just want to live a life with Julia. Everything I do is because I fell in love with a woman and I would literally give anything to be with her. Bitch, she is right fucking there. She is right there. She is saying, I want to start a life with you. She's begging him to run away with her. And this fucking hoe. I can't. I don't understand it. I don't get it.
Okay.
He says it's all he's ever wanted, and then he puts both of their lives at risk by going back in.
What he does right now. So we're moving on, and they go to the Annie shop. I think she was in a few episodes before, or she was definitely in a few episodes before.
Yeah,
they come and interrogate her. She's like, Spike's dead, and they don't believe her, so they shoot her. They go into the store. She's bleeding out. She's dying. She's like, basically like, I followed you to the end. This is what happened.
Yeah.
She dies.
That shit was sad.
It was a sad moment. Spike pulls out, disappears after she dies for a second, brings a box full of guns, basically. He's ready to fight. So we cut back to the Bebop to a very interesting moment where Jet and Faye have a conversation about Spike, right?
Yeah.
And what I got from this conversation was that Jet didn't approve of what Spike was doing. Like I feel like he and Faye were like kind of thinking and saying the same things that we were thinking and saying. Like they were kind of like the voices of reason in this situation, and Spike I just isn't doing what they think he should be doing, basically.
Yeah.
But it was a sweet moment because we saw them get personal, right? Get personal with each other. Because if there's any character who's going to get personal with Faye, is going to be Jet, right?
Yeah.
Spike and Julia get attacked and are now on the move. So they're jumping on buildings and stuff and trying to evade the syndicate, essentially. And lo and behold, Spike is running and Julia's following and she gets shot. And everything goes quiet. Spike is like, oh shit. And you see her just kind of dying. She whispers something to him. The camera looks straight at his eye, and there's this whole confusion surrounding Spike's eye, right? This whole thing going on with Spike's eye. And this just kind of furthers the questions. So she dies.
Yeah, and honestly, it's his fucking fault. It's his fucking fault. I have no sympathy for him.
So Jet goes to see a fortune teller to find Spike. And basically what we come out of this scene with is the end is near for Spike, right? But I feel like us as an audience are like, okay, are we sure about that? Because he's the main character. Death has come for him before. There's this whole conversation about him dying all the time. And, he's been close plenty of times.
Sure.
So Spike comes back to the Bebop, totally normal. Like it almost seems like there's nothing going on. He's like, hey, do you got food? and he eats and stuff, and he's like, oh, your food tastes as horrible as ever, whatever.
It was so cute.
It was a good moment.
And what a cute callback to literally the first episode, when the first scene of them is literally him complaining about his fucking beef and peppers with no beef.
Absolutely. So we see them talking and just having a sweet moment, having a laugh about a story he tells him. And so as Spike is kind of walking away, Jet is like, so you did all this for a woman or whatever. And Spike just kind of turns around and is like, there's nothing I can do for a dead woman.
Yeah.
And it was just like, that's the way he said that she died. And it was one of those things like, okay, that hit interestingly. and here's where the real feels kind of come out. And I have feelings about this scene in general, but Faye tries to convince Spike to not go. And there's kind of a sweet exchange, I would think, like, because I feel like the character that learned the most is Faye at this point.
Yeah, I can understand that.
She's like, hey, don't go. You told me that we don't need to worry about our past. You said that to me once, and here you are running to your past. I tried to run back to my past, and I still ended up here at home with you guys, like basically just saying these things. And he's like, blah, 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 blah. I have two eyes. One's real, one's fake. Look.
She's literally pouring her heart out. She's being more honest than we've seen probably any character in this show be. She's pouring her heart out, saying, like, please don't leave. Like, you're all I have.
Right.
And this bitch walks away.
He does. He absolutely does. And the thing is, we'll talk more about it. So Faye cries for him and she points the gun at him as he's walking away, but obviously she just unloads her clip into the air, doesn't actually shoot him. Flashback to Vicious and Spike fighting alongside each other. That are happening as he's rolling up to the building, and there's a really awesome song, and which is basically the credits song, right? And it's we finally hear the full song, and it's great. It's awesome. There's a lot of action and explosions, and there's a lot of great action. And Shin shows up to help Spike, and he's helping. Shin dies defending Spike from a bullet. Spike gets into the elevator, explodes some explosives, and here we are, the final confrontation of Spike and Vicious.
But honestly, this whole scene of Spike ascending the building and like coming through the lobby and then going upstairs and like evading everybody. There's this really cool like low to high shot of Spike running. And honestly, this whole sequence was really badass. That was my favorite part of this episode.
Oh, it was
like,
wonderful. Yeah.
This episode makes me mad, but honestly, this whole sequence was like S tier.
Yeah, it was awesome. I agree. And so we get to the final confrontation, and there's a lot of sword gun fighting here, and then there's a moment where I don't think I mentioned this before, but Spike does get shot, so he's already wounded rolling up to this. And there's a moment where they deflect each other, and they both have each other's weapons. And so they just quickly are like, this is how it was always going to go. Like, we were always going to end up fighting each other and, that sort of thing. And they give each other's weapons back and go again. And it essentially ends in them giving each other fatal blows. And so Vicious falls over with Spike, essentially the winner. But as he's walking down the steps, he sees a bunch of people from the syndicate looking at him. He points his fingers up, says bang, and he just falls over and dies right on the steps.
Yeah.
And that's it. That is completely it for this episode.
That's the show.
And then we get a good 5 minutes of credits. And this is the next thing that I really enjoyed about this episode. And it kind of made me feel like I felt it, But the last part of the episode was, you're going to carry that weight. Where it usually says, stuff, different things, right? It said, you're going to carry that weight. And it's like, all right.
I know. That shit made me sad.
I understand.
Louis, what are your feelings on this episode? I feel like I still don't know how you feel about it.
I wanted to wait to the end so I could give everybody my true feelings and let everybody be question marking it. I think you and I see this very differently.
Okay.
I think we do. I think that you see it in a more like in a linear way as to what Spike is doing is stupid, and I think maybe I'm seeing it in a way that's like, I think, and I might be overreaching here, but I feel like maybe the writer's intentions were, look at what can happen if you always dwell on the past. Like, I'm seeing this as a lesson. And so in my head, I'm like, this is kind of genius. You get what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I understand. I think like I'm just have a really emotional approach to this.
maybe.
Like this whole show, it's like the way that I have taken this entire show is it's about this like ragtag group of people who never really had anybody but themselves. And they come together and make this beautiful found family. And they finally feel like they have a place they can fit in. And I'm just sitting here watching Spike betray the only people that have ever watched out for him and lose all the people that are closest to him because he feels a sense of stupid pride that he can't get past. And he can't get past this idea of what he thinks he has to do. And he ends up ruining the lives of the people around him. And it's so frustrating because it's like they loved him. Faye loved Spike. Like she was trying to tell him that,
Mm-hmm.
And like Julia loved Spike, literally gave up her entire life so that Spike could be free and could live. And Spike knew the dangers of going in and going back and fighting against the syndicate. Also, not to mention, we don't really have any evidence. Like, yes, Vicious is a bad person. They're all bad people. This is a crime ring. But we're also not really given any reason as an audience to believe that they are going to continue to slaughter people senselessly. So we just see like he's going back in because he feels like he has to do this. And Julia gave up her life for Spike. And then he sacrifices her life. Like he knows the dangers of going back in, and he doesn't even ask if she's okay with that, and he just sacrifices. He puts her in harm's way, which ultimately tells me that he only really ever cared about himself. Like I feel like I spend all this time rooting for Spike, and all of his decisions are made in his own selfishness, and it made me so mad. I was so upset about it. So like I understand it, and I understand why the story ended this way. But it made me really mad. I felt like I was betrayed by this character and I don't like him anymore.
It almost feels like that was the point, right? Like, and that's, I mean.
I know. It just like, and obviously it's like a testament to how well this show works. Because, I mean, obviously I care so much about these characters. I was literally like, had rage tears when this episode ended. I was so fucking mad, Louis. and that just like goes to show like how well together this show is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And like, it clearly made me care very deeply about what happens to these characters.
Of course.
And it felt like a really unsatisfying ending to the story.
Yeah.
And we don't really get any closure about Faye or Jet. And I don't know. I feel like
it's also, it also mirrors life in a little, you know, in that way a little bit, you know?
Sure.
And I wouldn't necessarily say that this show sucks, right?
No, I love this show.
I think leading up to these last 3 episodes that effectively just wrap it all up, leading up to this, I'm like, okay, up until this point, we've had a lot of like a little bit of through line and a lot of just hanging out with these characters. It almost felt like, right?
Yeah.
And then when we get to these final 3 episodes, I'm like, oh, I understand why we've just been hanging out with these characters.
Yeah.
Because it's specifically for these last three episodes, right? For these last 3 episodes to feel all these things that we're feeling. I feel like, and this is just me as a storyteller in my own right? And I'm sure you, Katie, can attest to these feelings, right? Is me noticing that, hey, they had these 3 moments in mind, right? These 3 moments.
Yeah.
Maybe not 3, right? But like these moments, right? Within these 3 episodes.
Yeah.
One of the biggest moments being bang, right? Because that is something that's cultivated, right? And the great thing about anime, and I've said this ad nauseum, like I've said this in streams, I've said this in my last podcast, Geek Gourmet. The great thing that Japanese media does in a lot of anime specifically is that they are so good at cultivating moments. Like they are so good at being like, okay, this is the moment that I want to highlight in this series, and this is how I'm going to get there. And in my mind, this is they had these 3 moments and like, all right, how are we going to get here? Because when you see the bang, it's like, he does it because it looks badass and it sounds badass, right?
Yeah.
But like also there's layers where this bang is coming from, right? Because he knows he's dying.
Yeah.
He knows that he killed himself by doing this, but he also knows that he killed the syndicate by killing their leader.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if the leader, if they're gonna come back, right? Like that we will never know because it's over. But
yeah,
in my brain, it goes to show just how well they cultivated moments to understand, like, this is going to affect people in such a way. And like, no matter what
they're going to carry that weight.
They're quite literally going to carry that weight. Yes. And no matter what we say on our rinky dinky little podcast, this show affected the world. Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it did, like as much as I felt strongly about this, I will never say that those moments were not earned, because I felt like they were very, very earned dramatic moments. So I will never complain about that. It just like, it made me sad, especially seeing him fight the members of the syndicate who and he was a member of the syndicate.
Right.
He knows that a lot of those people were probably there against their own volition, because they were threatened and the people they love were threatened, and that they were just doing a job to save their own lives, and seeing him fight against them just felt like it felt so sad, because I'm like, Spike, these, these people are not, they have families.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It's also stupid because he's fucking bad at killing people. So I was just like, man, you're really going to go back in there, dude? Because this, out of the last 26 episodes, we've seen you successfully capture people once.
There is maybe one, a few times, but yes, agreed.
Maybe a couple times, but I don't know. I really, I think it made me feel a lot of things. And Andrew and I talked, because we watched this together, and we were talking about it a lot. And at the end, and he was like, I think that's what I like so much about this show, is at the end of the day, even though they grew together, they were really flawed.
Mhm.
And
No, yeah.
Spike ultimately was a flawed person. And that's the story that this is.
Mhm.
And he was like, I know you're upset because you wanted it to be a great ending for all these characters, but sometimes these people are so afflicted by their past that they literally cannot grow forward.
Mhm.
And that's kind of his journey. So I don't know. It's a sad ending to this show. It's a great show.
How would you, this being like your introduction? I know you've seen anime stuff before, but to diving into this as your first show watching with, you and I and discussing it, how would you rate this? Like, you just 1 to 10.
On like overall enjoyment, on like execution, plot, story, overall enjoyment, I would say I enjoyed this show like an 8 out of 10.
Okay. That's not a bad.
Like I really enjoyed this show. I think the things that stopped me from liking the show more are that I felt like I couldn't really relate to any of the characters,
Sure.
Which is just because like I live such different lives and such different personalities than a lot of these characters. So I didn't see myself in any of these characters, which is not a bad thing. Like that's just a thing. And I really enjoyed so much of the fun, adventure, and the wackiness and the sci-fi and the action, but wrapped up in all these fun little subplots. I really, really enjoyed this show. I think it made me very sad to have put so much time forth to something that ultimately was not hopeful, that just solidified my sadness in the human race.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing too, is that like a lot of anime does do that, like a lot of anime does have like the beauty in life that you can see, but also the horrors in life that you can see. And a lot of them don't, like, not all of them. There are some that I'm sure we'll watch that have resolved endings and that sort of thing. But they all have like their own thing, their own stories that they tell.
Yeah. And the only reason that I don't rank it higher than an 8 is because I feel like every third or fourth episode was like really, really, really good. And then like every couple of episodes, there was an episode that I was just like, I don't give a shit about this episode at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's like at least a quarter of these are just like episodes that I didn't really care for. But like when it's good, like with freaking Mad Pierre, it's so good.
Would you say was that your favorite episode then?
Yeah, that was by a long shot my favorite episode.
That's great. I'm glad.
How would you rank this episode? Where does this rank? Because I mean, you've seen a lot more anime than me all the way through. How does this stack up for you?
For me, I give it a rating higher than you. I'm gonna give it an 8.5. In like a perfect world, I would say a 9. And the only reason I don't give it a 9 is because there are a few episodes that they're kind of just episodes, and kind of a similar reason as to you. And so I'm just like, some of those don't need to be there, like, and they don't do anything for me as far as like furthering the story, making me feel like I'm getting to know these characters more. And not that you always need those episodes, right? Because there are some animes that and shows in general that are like, oh, those episodes also don't matter, but I like the world more, and so I would give the anime a higher rating as a result. A big one for me like that is My Hero Academia. That one's quite controversial. I can't talk. Because there's a lot of people who really enjoy it, and the people that enjoy it like really fucking enjoy it. Like their whole fandom is an anomaly. But then there's like these slice of life episodes within them that I'm like, I just don't need those, right? They don't feel like they do anything for me. Like I don't really enjoy watching them.
Sure.
But I would give My Hero a higher rating than this show because I enjoy the world more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense.
But I would say an 8.5 out of 10. I can also, the other reason I do give it that 0.5 more than you is because I just quite enjoy the amount of, and it's clear to me the amount of work that the design is put into, right? Like the production design, if whatever you would call that for animation, sound design, the names, there's a lot of allusions to song titles, and like we've discussed, I
Yeah.
found a few. If anybody's interested, who's listening to this, who wants to know where some of these song titles were come from, I can throw it in the Discord and be like, hey everybody, like these are the song titles, and what they mean, right, and where they derive from.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I liked it a lot.
I liked it a lot too. And I think a lot of our theories held up.
Someone
like
died.
a lot
Like
of
you
the
said,
things
someone
that we
died.
thought
Mhm.
really.
Yeah, someone died.
Yeah.
Well, this is gonna come out at some point soon. We're starting to be more regular with the way things have been coming out. Katie and I have just been bogged down with work lately and trying to get these out.
Yeah.
By this point of us recording, only the first one's out, and actually by this point, recording the next day, Monday, the second one's gonna come out. I think there's gonna be a total of like 5 episodes of this. Maybe I need to check our recordings, but yeah. So I know Katie and I have been talking about what we're gonna watch next, and obviously we have to start watching things as they as episodes come, and things just kind of happen for us. But we're so far ahead in recording that we haven't decided yet, right? What we're gonna watch, or have we decided yet?
Yeah. I don't think we fully decided.
No, I
yet.
think we were like Jujutsu Kaisen was one that you were.
Jujutsu Kaisen and then like Spy Family.
Yeah. We can talk more offline about that. But if you have any suggestions, even if it's not the next shows in the future that you would want us to watch and discuss and that sort of thing, please throw it in there. Thank you for watching or listening to our Cowboy Bebop slander episodes now. We quite enjoyed it. Katie, as we're ending here, where can people find you if they want to, follow you?
Oh, you know me at RealSlimKatie25 on Instagram, TikTok, Reddit, and Letterboxd, baby.
Letterboxd. That's fun. So,
what about you, Lou Dog? Where can people find you?
Nowhere. No. I'm at the Angry Belly everywhere minus Letterboxd. So I'm at the Angry Belly on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Twitch, on YouTube. I'm sure I'm forgetting Facebook. I'm sure I'm forgetting one or two, but if you search at the Angry Belly and you don't see me there,
OnlyFans.
Yeah, that one. If you don't see me there, then that'll be, something to think about.
Coming soon.
Then maybe it'll be there. Pornhub probably. Moving on. Katie and I briefly discussed us watching the animated movie that I didn't even know existed. So keep an eye out for where maybe that will come out potentially. We'll keep y'all updated on the Twitters and stuff on the Discord. Oh, and Discord, link in the description below for the Discord if you want to talk about all things anime or, that sort of thing. But I guess that's it.
Yeah, I guess that's it for us.
I feel weird.
I know, it feels weird that it's over.
I feel weird.
I mean, we still have the movie, and then apparently there's like a cut episode we could watch.
Ooh, okay. We'll research that more. And there's also that Netflix series that we could watch potentially.
I know.
It's not an anime.
I heard a rumor.
Oh, you heard a rumor?
So Ed is not in the first season at all because they wanted Cowboy Bebop to last 3 seasons. And as you remember, Ed doesn't really come in until the first third of the episodes.
Right, towards the end.
In the actual show anyways.
Yeah.
So they only have 1 season and it was canceled so fast. There's no way it's getting a second season.
Well.
So it's kind of awkward. And then they give Jet like a daughter. There's
interesting.
Anyways.
Okay.
Lots of feelings.
We'll see y'all next time. And in your time, it'll probably be, in 2 weeks. But in our time, we'll figure out what we're going to do. As always, remember to have fun, be safe, and to keep those bellies full. I'll see y'all on streams if you come out. Bye.
Bye.